What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bet the Over. We're getting deeper into Giants training camp, and I think we're finally getting to see what this offense is going to look like heading into the 2026-2027 regular season. Jaxson Dart, although started out the week a little shaky, seems to be settling into his new offense. The rookie class is making some serious plays and noise. Odell Beckham Jr. is looking like 2017 again. And then we're continuing to see positive signs from wide receiver one, can't guard Malik. So today we're getting into the biggest stories of training camp that stood out to me and all the other reporters that were in West Virginia this last week in West Virginia for training camp. Before we get into it, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and comment down below who you think the player that's in training camp, starting out with the quarterback like we usually always do, almost always do. Obviously, we'll start with Jaxson Dart. The biggest thing I'm watching for Dart is his ability to read plays pre-snap and also make the right decisions. We already know he can do that. It's everything before the play that can happen that really concerns me about Jaxson Dart. We know he can move. We know he can create more plays with his legs, dodge the blitz, also make some great running plays down the field. However, pre-snap, I would like to see if he can recognize the blitz, if he can stay in the pocket, and he can get through his reads and make the easy completions. Not every play has to be a big play. You could always take the check down, take 5-6 yards, stay ahead of the sticks. There's still been some mistakes, and there's going to be mistakes throughout training camp because it is a new offense, Matt Nagy offense, different offense from last year, different play style, different type of philosophy in a sense. But the biggest thing, we don't need Jaxson Dart to be Superman every play. He just needs to become a consistent pocket passer and beat people inside the pocket because we all know he can beat people outside of the pocket with his running ability. So Dart's decision making and staying with Dart. Last season, one of the things that we saw when the play broke down, his first instinct was to leave the pocket, run, make some plays. That's what makes him dangerous, and you don't want to completely eliminate that from his play. However, I do want him to become and develop more as a pocket passer. The quarterbacks who consistently win in the NFL are the ones that make the boring plays, take the check down, take whatever the defense gives you, and you don't have to be a superhero. Sometimes the best play is a 5-yard check down. Sometimes just throw the ball away and don't take a sack on second down. That could completely ruin a drive. That's one of the biggest developments I'm watching throughout the entire preseason and obviously into the season as well. Because if Dart becomes better in those situations, I think the entire offense is elevated to a level we haven't seen since maybe Eli Manning. So that's one of the biggest things I'm looking out for Jaxson Dart. Looking like 2016 OBJ because he has been one of the coolest stories of training camp. Obviously, we have that nostalgic factor. He was the face of the franchise 10 years ago, brings back one of the most popular Giants in the past 2 decades. As camp goes along, he's actually making the roster decision kind of interesting for the wide receiver 2 or 3. I'm not expecting prime Odell. Obviously, he's 33 years old, I think. But if Odell can give you 25 to 30 good snaps throughout a game, help you on third down, make some red zone plays, this could be huge for the Giants offense. Kind of, I guess, a unexpected hero on this team because maybe he has a little bit of juice left. I kind of doubt it because he hasn't performed in the past 3-4 years. But if he gives you some quality play, I mean, yeah, bring him back. Get those jersey sales up too. The one thing about the receiver battle that is interesting is that we don't really know who the wide receiver 2 is going to be. We all know the wide receiver 1 is Malik. And I honestly think the second best option that seems like is developing in this offense is actually Isaiah Likely as the second favorite target in the system. However, you have Darius Slayton as well, who's more of a deep threat, OBJ, and several other wide receivers, including Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin, and Malachi Fields, Giants' third-round pick, who they traded up for. So you're seeing a legit battle for the wide receiver too, and guys aren't just going to make this roster because there isn't anyone else. It's actually going to be best man wins, which I'm excited to see because we haven't had a real wide receiver battle in training camp in a very, very long time. Next, we'll get into the wide receiver one, Malik. As the training camp progresses, this is probably the player I'm watching the closest without caring what he actually does in the preseason games. Everything right now is about getting Malik healthy. You want him to be out there for week one. Obviously, that's best case scenario. That might not happen. However, you want him to go into whatever week he starts playing fully healthy. As we see him progress with his movement and his cutting and his route running, the Giants invested heavily in Jaxson Dart. But if we want to see Dart make a major leap forward this year, Malik completely changes this offense. He makes it easier for everyone else on the offense. Because if he gets double teamed, let's say, and he won't get the ball, the wide receiver two is going to have man-on-man coverage, single coverage. Isaiah likely will have single coverage, and also the running game potentially will have a little bit more space to operate because there'll be one less defender to worry about in the middle of the field. Next, we're going to go to the defense because this rookie has completely turned heads at training camp. We'll start with Arvell Reese on the defense. We knew coming into the draft, Arvell Reese was an elite athlete, crazy combine, great at Ohio State. And that's a huge reason why the Giants took him with the 5th overall pick this year. But going throughout training camp, we're starting to hear more and more about the other parts of his game, his physicality, his ability to play downhill. His coverage, shockingly, has actually been very, very good so far. And most importantly, how quick does he seem to pick everything up? That's what I'm most looking for in training camp is Arvell Reese learning the the defense, because I think the athleticism is there. It's not even a question. It's just he has to know where to be and when to be there. That's being a great athlete when you're drafted. That's kind of the biggest challenge and struggle, I guess, you have going in to the NFL is the difference in physicality and I guess the information you have to kind of think about while you're playing. And now I'm going to get into what Arvell Reese adds to this defense. What Arvell Reese is especially good at is kind of blowing up plays. He seems to always be around the ball. And what's great about him in this defense is you kind of don't need him for one specific area. He could do a bunch of different things. He's like a Swiss Army knife because up front, you got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon, and there are multiple guys that the offense has to worry about before the snap. Then you add someone like Arvell Reese coming in from the second level. That's where this defense really becomes interesting, and that's what makes this defense very, very exciting because now offensive linemen have to figure out where the pressure is coming from. It won't just come from the edge rushers. It can come from the second level. And the Giants can create confusion with Denard Wilson's exotic blitz package that can really complicate a game for the opposing offense. Next, we'll go back to the offense. However, we're going to stay on the rookies. Francis Mauigoa, also known as CeCe Mauigoa, another rookie that deserves attention. The offensive linemen are obviously harder to evaluate in training camp because we're not getting every highlight clip every time the guard or tackle has a good rep. But this is a massive storyline. The Giants desperately need consistent offensive line play. Last year they were pretty good, but the prior 5 years before last year, they were one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And we have seen over and over again what happens when the unit starts dealing with injuries or poor play. It affects the entire offense. So Dart doesn't have time. The running game disappears, and suddenly the offense becomes predictable once the offensive linemen get hurt or just poor play in general. So if Mauigoa can step in as a rookie and simply be a reliable starter with potential upside, it's a massive win. He doesn't need to be an all-pro immediately. He just needs to be a solid guard that the Giants can build with for the next 6 or to 10 years, hopefully. The offensive line in general has been the biggest thing I've been watching kind of throughout training camp because we can talk about Dart, we can talk about the wide receivers, we can talk about the pass rush, but it doesn't really matter if Dart's under pressure immediately when the ball snaps. We've seen this so many times as Giants fans. This team just needs to finally get a season where the offensive line is consistently not the biggest weakness on this team. It's about watching the depth, who can actually step in if someone gets hurt, and also because during this season, someone is going to get hurt on the offensive line. It's inevitable. It always happens. Cornerback, apparently Deonte Banks is having a good camp, which is kind of surprising. If Hood continues to play well, though, he can lock himself up for the CB2 for the future because Greg Newsome's on a short deal, and so far Paulson Adebo hasn't played necessarily well through his Giants career. And that's one battle where the preseason is going to matter a lot for him, because it's one thing to make plays during practice. It's another thing when you line up against another team's wide receiver and the quarterback on the other team's trying to throw at you because you're a rookie and they're going to test you. I want to see how Hood holds up when the team's attacking him, because if it continues to play well, the Giants could have some legitimate depth in the secondary, which we also have not had in a very, very long time. The defense as a whole, when I look at the Giants defense, this might be what I'm most excited about. There's just a lot of talent everywhere, and a lot of it is young talent, especially up front. You're talking about players who can realistically win one-on-one reps. You talk about Abdul Carter. You talk about Arvell Reese. You talk about Darius Alexander can make some plays up front. Kayvon's not that old either. I mean, Brian Burns is probably the oldest pass rusher, but he's a proven player. So you got a lot of young pieces on the defense. You can also kind of blitz and drop people into coverage with, I guess, confusion. I didn't know how else to explain it, but there's a lot of players that can do a lot of different things. There's a lot of versatility on the defense. So you don't have to just line up like Shane Bowen did, 4 guys rushing the passer, no sort of blitz or disguise or nothing. That's why the Giants defense was kind of predictable last year, whereas now they can be more unpredictable, which is a lot better for the opposing offense, or worse for the opposing offense, because they don't know who's blitzing, who's dropping in coverage, what type of coverage they're playing, etc. So going into the edge room, we all know we got Brian Burns. Burns is already established. Abdul Carter has shown what type of athlete he can be. He's had a very good training camp so far. And then you also have Kayvon Thibodeau entering a massive season. There's only so many offensive linemen that can double team these players on the defensive line. Somebody's got to win a one-on-one. If the Giants can consistently put Burns, Carter, and Kayvon in a favorable one-on-one situation, someone will win. Trust me. And this is also what I'm interested to see, how Denard Wilson gets those guys into one-on-one situations. Because like I said, you can blitz accordingly and get these guys in one-on-ones. So that's what I'm looking for. What I want to see in preseason, really, heading into preseason, there are 5 things I want to see. I want to see first if Jaxson Dart is comfortable inside the pocket. I want to see good decisions. I don't want him to play hero ball every time. Second, I want to see the offensive line, how they hold up against the other team's starting 5 or players up front. Third, I want to see the rookies. The rookies in preseason, I think, is very important. You really see who belongs in the NFL and who's going to take a little bit longer to develop. So I want to see Arvell Reese, Francis Mauigoa, Colton Hood. I want to see Malachi Fields, his impact on this offense. And I also want to see how this wide receiver battle shakes up in the preseason. I want to see the first drive with the first team offense. Who's playing wide receiver 2? Who's in the slot? Will it be Odell? We don't know. And then finally, I want to see how this defense attacks the opposing offensive line. I want to see, is it mostly blitzing? Is it mostly drop into coverage? Who's blitzing from which side? Are they overloading one side? Are they all just straight up pass rush one-on-one? It's going to be crazy to see in the first preseason game. My biggest takeaways so far: the Giants training camp. I think this roster has more upside than it did a year ago. They have a lot younger pieces with, I think, more potential. That automatically doesn't mean they're going to win 10 more games than last year. There's still a lot of questions. The offensive line has to stay healthy. Malik Nabers has to get back to Malik Nabers form. He's coming off a significant injury. The young players have to prove that the training camp hype is real. And most importantly, Jaxson Dart has to take that next step. And there's some good and some bad. Obviously, this team has a big season upcoming because basically everyone on this coaching staff is brand new. So, overall, I think this was another really encouraging week of training camp. This was their last week in West Virginia. Jaxson Dart continues to improve after a shaky start. Arvell Reese could look like an immediate impact player. OBJ is making the roster and practice. I want to see these guys go up against another team. I think there's a scrimmage coming up. Let me know in the comments who you think has impressed you so far in training camp. Also, let me know which player you want me to focus on in preseason. Make sure you subscribe to Bet the Over and comment down below who you're most excited to see going into the regular season. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a great rest of your weekend.